have you ever felt that hum, that kind of background feeling in our daily lives, that subtle shift where you just know something really big is happening with artificial intelligence, even if you can't quite pin it down?
Yeah, you mean.
So it's woven into our phones, our searches, the shows we get recommended, and now,
Yeah.
oh, it just feels like it's everywhere, doesn't it? We hear about AI breakthroughs almost every day.
Right.
And behind so many of them, you keep seeing these two names pop up again and again, OpenAI and Google DeepMind.
Absolutely. They're the giants in the room, really.
Wow. And looking through all the material you've pulled together for us here, I mean, it's clear we're not just scratching the surface. You've really dug up some fascinating stuff on this whole AI war between them.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
It's like a gold mine. You've got the history, the expert takes, the real world impacts. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to really take a deep dive into all of it. Pull out those key pieces of knowledge.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating, I think, is that this AI war, it's not just, two big tech companies duking it out.
Right.
It's more like a microcosm, a reflection of these much bigger challenges and honestly fundamental choices that we're all facing as a society. So our mission, like you said, is to get past the headlines, to really look at the nuances, the societal stuff, the big questions this whole competition brings up for everyone. It's not just about who's faster or who's got the biggest model.
It's about what it all means.
Exactly. What does this chase for, super advanced AI actually mean for our future? And as the sources you found make crystal clear, the stakes, well, they couldn't be higher.
That's a really powerful way to put it, and it definitely drives home how much is riding on this. So,
Yeah.
Okay, to really get a handle on the rivalry now, we kind of need to hit rewind, right? Set the scene. Let's go way back to the very, very beginning of AI itself. It kicked off with a question that honestly sounds like it's straight out of science fiction.
It really does. You go back to the dawn of computing, basically, the early 1950s, and you have Alan Turing, just this brilliant visionary mind.
A legend.
Totally. And he asks this question that sounds so simple, but it's incredibly profound. Can machines think?
Wow.
And this wasn't just like philosophical daydreaming, it was radical. It was imagining intelligence separate from, biology. That question basically lit the fuse for the entire field. It laid the groundwork conceptually for everything since, pushing us to think about what thought even is.
And it didn't take long for that idea, that question to get a label, did it?
Nope. Just a few years on, summer of '56, there was this key meeting at Dartmouth College. The Dartmouth Conference, that's where John McCarthy and his colleagues officially coined the term artificial intelligence.
Okay.
But back then, AI was mostly this abstract dream. The computers were huge, slow, expensive. The hardware just wasn't there yet.
Right.
And maybe even more importantly, people's imaginations were limited too about what these machines could really do. It was mostly theory, logic, not much real-world stuff happening yet. They were wrestling with basic things like, how do you make a machine understand common sense? Or tell a cat from a dog without spelling out every single tiny detail?
And then that initial excitement, that big dream,
Yeah.
that kind of hit some walls, didn't it? We hear about these AI winters. What were they? What happened?
Yeah, the AI winters, those were these really tough periods, mostly from the 70s through the 90s, where basically the money dried up. And public interest just faded. The really big promises made early on, often way too optimistic.
Overhyped.
Exactly. They just didn't deliver in a big practical way. Things like expert systems that were meant to copy human decision-making, they often turned out to be kind of fragile, hard to scale up.
Right.
And that common sense problem, just giving machines basic intuition about the world, that stayed mostly unsolved. So AI research, which started with all this futuristic buzz, kind of retreated into these niche academic corners.
Went underground.
Pretty much, yeah. Went underground, quietly working on ideas like neural nets, while the rest of the world, feeling a bit burned by the hype, mostly forgot about it.
So it fades from view, becomes this obscure academic thing. What brought it roaring back? What was the spark for the AI revival we're seeing now?
Okay, so the big turning point comes around 2006. People often call it the deep learning renaissance.
Right.
And a huge part of that was down to researchers like Geoffrey Hinton and his team, who just kept pushing on neural networks.
Persistent.
Totally. The ideas weren't brand new, but suddenly we had the computing power and, crucially, these massive data sets from the internet. That combination finally made neural nets practical.
The data.
Exactly. And that just flipped the script. Instead of programming machines with rigid rules for everything.
Like the old expert systems.
Right. Instead of that, Hinton's work let machines learn directly from huge amounts of data. It's less like giving a kid a rule book, more like showing them millions of photos and letting them figure out what a cat looks like.
Makes sense.
It was this massive shift. AI could suddenly spot these really subtle, complex patterned stuff humans might miss and use that to make sophisticated decisions. That just revitalized the whole field, breathed new life into it, and paved the way for the giants we have today.
And those giants, OpenAI and Google DeepMind, they kind of rode that deep learning wave, emerging around the same time, right? Tell us about how they got started, what their initial goals were, because that's really where the seeds of this AI war were planted.
Absolutely. So the early 2010s, that's when these two powerhouses really come onto the scene, both with huge ambitions. First up, you had DeepMind, founded in 2010 by Demis Hassabis, Shane Legg, and Mustafa Suleyman. And their core mission right from day one was incredibly bold, basically, to solve intelligence.
Wow, just casually solve intelligence.
Yes, no big deal. And ultimately, to create artificial general intelligence, AGI, AI with human-level smarts, that can do any intellectual task a person can.
The Holy Grail.
Pretty much. And Google saw the potential, obviously. They snapped them up in 2014. That acquisition was a huge signal of Google's serious, long-term bet on AI.
Right, a major move. And then OpenAI shows up a little later with maybe a slightly different angle, initially at least.
Yeah, OpenAI launched in December 2015, co-founded by this really notable group. Elon Musk was involved early on, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, Ilya Sutskever, others.
Big names.
Big names. Their goal was also AGI, fundamentally. But their stated mission had this key twist: to develop AGI that benefits all humanity.
Okay, emphasis on benefit.
Right, and specifically to make sure it wasn't controlled by just one company or, used for bad ends. That little difference in the mission statement focusing on broad benefit, safety kind of hinted at some of the philosophical differences that would really come into play later on.
So both aiming for AGI, but maybe slightly different roadmaps or philosophies on paper. Okay, let's talk milestones. The big moments that really put them on the map and cranked up the rivalry. What were some breakthroughs that made everyone sit up and notice?
Well, for DeepMind, the absolute watershed moment has to be AlphaGo, March 2016.
Ah, yes, the Go match.
Exactly. Their AI system just definitively beat Lee Sedol, the world champion of Go. And Go is this ancient game, incredibly complex.
Way more complex than chess, right?
Orders of magnitude more complex. Requires deep intuition, strategy, creativity. Before AlphaGo, seriously, most top AI people thought mastering Go was still decades away.
Right.
AlphaGo's clever mix of deep learning and search techniques, plus learning from playing itself millions of times. It just completely changed how people saw AI's potential for strategic thought. That victory wasn't just about a game, it shifted public perception in a huge way.
That really was a wow moment. It felt like AI suddenly leaped forward. And then for OpenAI, they really crashed into the mainstream with their language models, didn't they? GPT almost became synonymous with AI for a lot of
Oh, absolutely spot on. OpenAI's GPT series, the generative pre-trained transformers rolling out between, say, 2018 and 2022, they just revolutionized language generation.
How so? What was different?
Well, older language AI used more rigid rules or stats. GPT models built on this transformer architecture could process and generate language that felt, fluid, coherent, sometimes spookily human-like.
Yeah.
They learned from just astronomical amounts of text off the internet, grammar, facts, writing styles, even kind of common sense stuff hidden in the language.
Right.
And that all led up to ChatGPT hitting the scene in late 2022 and just becoming a household name overnight. It put powerful conversational AI into everyone's hands, basically. Made millions realize what these large language models could actually do right now.
And things seem to have gotten even more intense just recently, like in the last year or two. It feels like this AI war has kicked into hyperdrive.
Oh, definitely. Your sources really highlight 2023, 2024 as this period of just accelerating rivalry, a hyper-competitive phase.
What does that look like?
Well, massive investments pouring in, billions flooding the zone, mostly from the big tech players and VCs. That's fueling this intense compute race, a mad scramble for the specialized chips, the GPUs, needed to train these huge models.
Right, the hardware bottleneck.
Exactly. GPUs are becoming like the new oil, strategically vital. And that concentration of resources raises big questions about who actually gets to innovate.
Yeah, because smaller players even compete.
That's the worry. Plus, you've got these heated debates raging about open source. Should powerful models be free for anyone or kept locked down due to safety risks or just, competitive advantage? And maybe most visibly, there's this surge in public discussion about the risks, bias, deepfakes, jobs, even existential threats. It feels like the competition has just hit escape velocity. Every breakthrough puts more pressure on the other side.
Okay, here's something really cool I found in the notes about DeepMind's early days. Something about Atari games. It seemed kind of funny imagining AI playing Pac-Man for some profound reason.
Huh. Yeah, that's a fantastic little detail, and it says so much about DeepMind's core thinking.
Tell me more.
So, years before AlphaGo was even a thing, their early AI prototypes spent endless hours playing classic Atari games.
Right, just getting high scores.
Not just that, that was part of it, learning the mechanics, but they were also using it to try and measure emergent creativity.
Creativity.
In Pac-Man.
Sort of. They were looking at how the AI adapted. Did it find weird, novel strategies that maybe a human wouldn't? How did it handle unexpected stuff? Was it just brute force, or was there something more flexible, more intelligent happening?
Interesting.
And that fascination with finding creativity, or at least novel problem solving, goes right back to Demis Hassabis himself. His background as a chess prodigy, a game designer.
Oh.
He wasn't just building a calculator, he was looking for sparks of general intelligence, adaptable learning. It really shows DeepMind's philosophical drive from the very beginning, understanding and replicating general intelligence, not just mastering specific tasks. That's a great insight, more than just winning games. Okay, so we've seen these giants push the tech boundaries, Go masters, language wizards. But this isn't just abstract tech stuff, it's changing our lives, even how we think and feel. Let's pivot now to the human side. What's the psychological impact on people and the bigger shifts happening in society?
Yeah, the psychological footprint is already, it's huge, and it's everywhere. On the individual level, you see this real spike in what behavioral economists call automation anxiety.
Job worries.
Exactly. But it's not just factory jobs anymore. It's hitting knowledge workers, hard journalists, coders, designers, analysts, people who maybe thought their jobs were too complex, too cognitive to be automated.
Right, the safe jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're facing genuine insecurity as AI tools get better and better at tasks that used to be purely human. That causes real stress, forces people to rethink their skills, their careers.
So it's creeping into white-collar, even creative work now.
Deeply. And then there's this other really interesting psychological thing, anthropomorphism.
Giving human traits to non-humans.
Precisely. It's this baked-in human tendency. And your sources point out how people talk to ChatGPT, or even things like AlphaCode, as if they're, almost conscious.
Yeah, I've done that.
We all do. We treat them like a colleague, a friend, maybe even a therapist sometimes. It's natural. We seek connection. But it does raise fascinating questions about how we relate to these increasingly smart, non-human things, blurs the lines between tool and something else.
It really does. It's hard not to when the responses are so convincing. And bigger picture, societally, how is the collective mindset changing? What are the social dynamics?
Well, societally, AI's rise is causing this big shift in trust and reliance. We're outsourcing more than just boring tasks. We're outsourcing judgment.
Judgment, how so?
Think about it. From letting AI check our grammar or help write emails, all the way to people actually seeking moral advice from chatbots or relying on them for complex problem solving, even medical insights sometimes. We're delegating decision-making to algorithms that work off patterns in data, not human experience or intuition. And that's subtly changing how we make choices, what we see as truth or expertise. And this ties into what your sources call a major global schism, this stark divide between techno-optimism and techno-pessimism.
Okay, explain this.
So the techno-optimists, they see AI as potentially humanity's salvation, curing diseases, solving climate change, ushering in this era of abundance, AI augmenting human intelligence to new heights.
The utopian view.
Right. And then on the flip side, you have the techno-pessimists, or the doomers, as they're sometimes called.
Yep.
They look at AI and see, potentially an existential threat. They worry about mass unemployment, society drowning in deepfakes and manipulation, and the nightmare scenario of AGI running wild, maybe beyond our control, acting against our interests.
High stakes either way.
Huge stakes. And this split isn't just academic. It shapes public opinion, policy, everything. And this brings up a really important question. As we hand over more and more to AI, what are we potentially losing in ourselves, in our connections with each other?
No.
Sherry Turkle, the psychologist, has this really powerful warning about what she calls relational AI systems designed to mimic empathy, companionship.
Like chatbot friends.
Exactly. She worries these might erode real human relationships. They offer the illusion of companionship, she says, but without the messy, demanding, rewarding parts of actual intimacy and vulnerability.
Convenience over connection.
Potentially, yeah. Could we end up preferring the easy, non-demanding AI relationship over the complexities of real human bonds? It's a critical thing to think about as AI gets woven deeper into our social lives.
That is genuinely thought-provoking. The long-term effect on just how we relate to each other. Okay, let's broaden the scope again. Let's look at AI's footprint out there in the world. How is this AI race, this whole phenomenon, showing up in politics, work, even pop culture?
Well, politics is a huge one and urgent. Nations aren't just watching anymore. They are actively, aggressively racing to control AI as a strategic asset.
Like a new arms race.
In a way, yeah. It highlights just how geopolitically crucial AI has become. It's seen as this new frontier of power. It impacts military strength, cyber warfare, intelligence, economic competition, global dominance, basically.
Right.
Whichever country leads in AI is seen as having a massive edge in the 21st century. So it's top of the agenda for national security, economic strategy.
So it's governments competing, not just companies.
Yeah.
And how about work, especially those creative fields we thought were uniquely human?
Generative AI, particularly from places like OpenAI, is just fundamentally reshaping creative industries. Journalism, advertising, film, music, software development, you name it.
How so?
AI can now draft articles, write marketing copy, brainstorm story ideas, compose music, create images, even write code. This forces this huge reevaluation of the human role.
Yeah.
It challenges workflows, raises tricky questions about authorship, originality, IP. What does creative even mean when a machine can produce something indistinguishable from, or maybe even better than, a human? Creators are wrestling with this. Is it a tool, a collaborator, or a replacement?
It seems to be touching everything. And it's not just in our jobs or the news. AI is like a stock character in our movies and TV shows now.
That's so true. AI's image in pop culture, think Ultron in Marvel, Jarvis in Iron Man, Black Mirror, Westworld. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not just entertainment. These stories actively shape how we think about AI, what it can do, the potential dangers, the benefits, whether they show helpful assistance or runaway killer robots. These narratives feed into our collective understanding, our fears, our hopes. They frame the whole public debate.
And speaking of fears,
Yeah.
misinformation is already such a massive problem. How does AI factor into that, especially with deepfakes?
This is a really critical and frankly scary area. Deepfakes, those super realistic fake videos, images, audio created by AI along with other AI propaganda, your sources say they're actively fueling what some call new age psychological warfare.
Wow.
The power to create convincing fake content at scale, making it look like someone said or did something they never did, it just erodes trust. Trust in media, trust in politicians, trust in anything you see online.
Makes it hard to know it's real.
Exactly. It's got huge implications for democracy, for social cohesion. It ramps up fears about manipulation and disinformation, destabilizing everything.
Okay, so given all that, the strategic race, the social upheaval, the deepfake threat, it makes sense that governments are scrambling to regulate this stuff.
Yeah.
What are the different approaches we're seeing globally?
Yeah, scrambling is the right word. There's this real sense of urgency, and your sources lay out some really distinct, often clashing philosophies.
Like what?
Well, you've got the EU's big AI Act. That's very much about a strict risk-based approach. Safety, transparency, human oversight are key. They categorize AI by risk level, slap heavy rules on high-risk stuff like in critical infrastructure or law enforcement.
Okay, safety first.
Then you look at China, totally different model, much more about strict top-down control. AI as a tool of the state, integrated with surveillance, social scoring, censorship. The focus is stability and state power.
Right.
And the U.S. generally it leans towards open innovation. The idea is to foster rapid development, often with lighter touch regulation, maybe voluntary guidelines, sector-specific rules, more market-driven.
Interesting how different they are.
Very. And our sources do a good job of just laying out these different philosophies impartially, not taking sides, just showing how different societies, based on their history, politics, values, are trying to get their arms around AI's impact. Their existing systems really shape their response.
It's clear the rules are just as complex as the tech. Okay, let's peel back another layer here. OpenAI and DeepMind. They have these public images, these narratives. But there are some persistent myths, some unspoken truths maybe. Let's start with OpenAI. Open is right there in the name. How open are they, really?
That is such a critical question, isn't it? Especially with that name. So what does it mean for OpenAI now that they've changed so much?
Right.
The reality check from your sources is pretty stark. They started as a nonprofit, very open source focused. But then, 2019, they switched to this capped profit hybrid structure.
Capped profit.
Yeah, basically allowing them to take huge investment by promising investors a limited return. But that shift, it caused a lot of debate, internally and externally, about transparency, about access to their models, about how open they could really be when they also had profit goals, even tapped ones.
So it changed things.
Critics definitely argue it shifted their priorities from just pure research and public good towards being much more competitive commercially. It's a big change from their origin story, complicates the open image quite a bit.
And DeepMind.
Yeah.
They often talk about ethical AI. They have a whole division for it. Is that also more complicated than it looks?
It's definitely nuanced, yeah. DeepMind absolutely has its ethics and society division. They publish research, they put out guidelines, they analyze the societal impacts, they contribute valuable stuff to the ethical AI conversation.
Right.
But the critics argue that the real oversight is ultimately limited by its corporate parent, Google.
The Google factor.
Right. The worry is, even with the best intentions in the ethics division, Google's own corporate needs, business strategies, profit motives, those might ultimately trump the ethical guidelines in practice. There's this built-in tension, right, between idealistic goals and the hard realities of corporate competition.
So beneath the surface narratives, openness,
Yes.
ethics, there's this fierce, maybe unspoken competition driving things.
Absolutely. That unspoken rivalry is a huge part of this AI war. They might talk about being mission-driven partners of humanity,
Right.
but the sources make it clear. In practice, it's intense, high-stakes competition. They poach talent from each other constantly. They spend big on lobbying governments to shape policies their way. They fight tooth and nail for those compute resources, the GPUs we talked about.
It's still Silicon Valley.
At the end of the day, yeah. It shows just how much economic and strategic value is tied up in leading the AI race. It's as cutthroat as any other tech battle.
And what about AGI timelines? Everyone seems to have a different prediction, a few years, decades, never. Is there any clarity from insiders, or is it all smoke and mirrors?
Yeah, the AGI timeline thing, it's shrouded in secrecy and speculation. It really does fuel both the hype and the paranoia.
Why so much variation?
Well, public statements from leaders, from experts, they just differ wildly. It creates this really confusing picture. But what's really interesting, according to your sources, is that insiders quietly admit AGI may be closer or further than public estimates suggest.
So they don't even know, or they're not saying.
It could be a bit of both.
Yeah.
Maybe genuine uncertainty, maybe strategic ambiguity. Keeping things vague manages expectations, keeps competitors guessing, maybe avoids freaking people out too much or sparking unrealistic hopes.
Right.
But that lack of a clear consensus, even within the industry, definitely fuels both hype and paranoia outside it. Makes it really hard for anyone to actually plan.
That makes sense. Uncertainty breeds speculation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to the people shaping these debates, the experts, the voices from the frontier. What are some of the main views on AI's future? And then what are the counter-arguments, the critical takes?
Okay, so on the mainstream side, often more optimistic or pragmatic, you've got people like Stuart Russell. Major AI pioneer, co-wrote the standard textbook.
Okay.
His big thing is calling for provably beneficial AI. He stresses the need to really bake human values into AI's core goals, aligning machine goals with human values, making sure, mathematically almost, that AI serves our interests and doesn't cause harm by accident.
So focus on control and safety from the start. And what about the leaders of OpenAI and DeepMind? What are their philosophies?
Well, Sam Altman from OpenAI often talks about iterative deployment, meaning releasing powerful AI gradually, in steps. Let society adapt, give feedback, test the impact in the real world, rather than just dropping some super powerful thing out of the blue. He argues it's safer, more collaborative.
Okay, slow and steady.
Relatively speaking. And then Demis Hassabis at DeepMind, his big dream is AI that accelerates scientific discovery. He sees AI as a partner in science, cracking problems humans can't, like they did with AlphaFold and protein folding, using AI to fundamentally speed up human understanding.
So those are the more established, maybe optimistic views. What about the critics? The ones raising red flags.
Right. So on the more critical end, you have figures like Eliezer Yudkowsky. He's a key voice for the AI doomers, as they're sometimes known.
Doomers? Sounds intense.
It is. His argument is pretty stark. He thinks truly aligning superintelligent AI with human values might be nearly impossible to guarantee. And if we fail, he warns that unaligned AGI could end humanity. Full stop.
Wow. Existential risk.
That's the core of their concern. They argue for extreme caution, maybe even halting some research, because the risk of getting it wrong is just too catastrophic.
That's a fundamental challenge. And then there are the AI ethicists raising different but also critical alarms about AI today.
Exactly. People like Timnit Gebru and many others in AI ethics, they focus on the here and now. They highlight the dangers of hidden biases baked into AI systems from biased training data.
Right, reflecting our own prejudices.
Precisely, which leads to unfair outcomes in hiring, loans, policing. They also call out exploitative data practices, like how data labeling often relies on low-paid workers. And they raise huge concerns about the concentration of AI power in Silicon Valley.
Too much power in too few hands.
Yeah. Asking questions about equity, accountability, who really benefits from all this, and who gets left behind or even harmed. And if you connect this back to the big picture, these aren't just academic arguments, right? These different viewpoints directly influence how the tech gets built, how it gets used, how it gets regulated. It's this deep tension about AI's nature, the risks, and whether we can actually control it responsibly. That tension is the AI war, in a way.
That's a really crucial point. It's the philosophy, the ethics, the responsibility behind the code. Okay, let's make this even more concrete. Let's move from the debates to the real world with some specific examples from DeepMind and OpenAI. What are some of their biggest hits, applications that have already made a real difference?
Well, DeepMind's AlphaFold is just a stunning example, a true game changer.
The protein folding thing.
Exactly. Released around 2020, it basically solved a 50-year biology puzzle. Understanding how proteins fold into 3D shapes is fundamental to biology and disease. AlphaFold's ability to predict those shapes accurately and super fast. It's had massive direct benefits, hugely accelerating drug discovery, helping design new medicines, advancing our understanding of life itself. It's a prime case of AI driving fundamental science forward.
That's undeniably huge, a clear win for science.
Yeah.
And OpenAI, ChatGPT obviously blew up publicly, made AI tangible for millions.
Absolutely. ChatGPT is the perfect example of AI transforming sectors through just being so accessible and conversational since it launched. I mean, it's changed customer support with smart automation, it's impacting education with tutoring and content tools, and even, as your sources mentioned, therapy.
Therapy. How?
Yeah, this specific example was fascinating. Some therapists are actually using GPT as a kind of assistant, helping organize session notes, generate writing prompts, draft communications, basically augmenting their work.
Interesting.
It just shows the sheer versatility and power of a widely available large language model impacting professionals, not just the general public.
And it's not always a smooth ride inside these labs, right? Even with these amazing breakthroughs. You mentioned something about DeepMind hitting some internal turbulence.
Yeah, there was this interesting conflict noted in your sources back in 2020. DeepMind researchers apparently clashed with Google execs.
Over what?
Over data privacy concerns and also promises of independence that were supposedly made when Google bought them.
The parent company again.
Exactly. It's a great anecdote because it shows that even cutting-edge labs face old-school corporate control battles.
Right.
No matter how futuristic the tech, they're still dealing with corporate structures, data rules, strategic arguments, just like any big company. It's a reminder of the very human, sometimes messy reality behind the glossy AI research fights over autonomy, ethics, control.
That's a really important dose of reality. It's not just pure science, it's business, it's politics, it's people. Okay, zooming out one last time, let's look at the global picture. How do different cultures see AI? How does that shape development? It really is fascinating how history and geography mold our approach to something so global.
It really is, isn't it? The cultural lens is huge. So in the US, AI is often framed primarily as innovation and opportunity. It's deeply tied into that whole Silicon Valley mythos of progress, disruption, market leadership. The narrative is often about moving fast, breaking things, less initial focus on heavy regulation.
Right, the default mode. And China. Seems like a totally different philosophy.
Completely. In China, AI is very much seen as a strategic arm of state power. You see it in how widely it's used for policy, social control, national development. Think facial recognition everywhere, social scoring systems, intense surveillance.
Right.
The emphasis is really on stability, efficiency, state control. AI is integrated into governing society itself.
And Europe, with its history, especially around privacy.
Europe's approach is definitely distinct. It's heavily influenced by that cultural memory of surveillance states from the 20th century.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That history fuels a much stronger push for stricter data privacy and AI regulation. Prioritizing individual rights, ethics, democratic values over just speed or state power. The EU's AI Act is the prime example of that philosophy in action, trying to lead on responsible AI.
So clear differences based on history and values. Are there other cultural perspectives we should consider, maybe ones that don't get heard as much?
Yeah, your sources make a really important point about indigenous perspectives. They're often missing from the mainstream AI debates, right?
Sure.
But they raise these fundamental, critical questions that challenge the dominant narrative. Questions like, who owns knowledge? Which gets at IP, cultural data ownership, or whose values train the machine? Which is about bias, about imposing one set of cultural norms through the tech.
Wow. Powerful questions.
They really are. They force us to think about cultural preservation, digital sovereignty, the biases we might be encoding if we don't include diverse viewpoints right from the start. Their absence from the conversation is itself a kind of bias we need to fix.
That's such a vital point. A reminder of the deep ethics underneath it all. Okay, let's try to synthesize everything. Let's do a critical analysis. AI's strengths, its weaknesses, the benefits, and the dangers. Kind of a final tally.
Okay, the big picture. If we connect it all, it's clear AI isn't just good or bad, right? It's a tool, a powerful one. And its impact depends entirely on us, how we use it, why we use it.
Okay, so strengths first.
Strengths. Definitely unprecedented problem-solving capacity.
Yeah.
We see it in complex climate modeling, predicting environmental shifts.
Yeah.
We see it in drug discovery, finding potential cures way faster than humans could alone. AI can just crunch data and find patterns on a scale we can't comprehend. Another strength. Democratization of tools. Things like GPT-like models make sophisticated tasks accessible to almost anyone. Writing help, translation, basic coding, analysis, it empowers people.
Okay, but those strengths must come with weaknesses too.
Oh, absolutely. Big ones. First, energy consumption. Training these huge models, it takes insane amounts of power. We're talking huge carbon footprints, which is a major environmental issue.
Right, the climate cost.
Then there's bias and misuse. AI learns from our data, and our data reflects our biases. So AI can easily reflect societal prejudices and often amplify them, leading to unfairness in hiring, loans, justice, you name it.
A serious problem.
And finally, centralized power. As your sources note, a few big labs like OpenAI and DeepMind hold disproportionate sway. That raises alarms about monopolies, lack of accountability, too much influence over our future being in too few hands.
So concentrated power, ethical risks, environmental costs, but there are clear benefits too, right? Let's not forget those.
Definitely not. The benefits are real and transformative. AI clearly boosts productivity everywhere. Automating tasks, optimizing systems, freeing up humans for more creative or complex work. It massively advances science and medicine. AlphaFold is just one example. It accelerates discovery across the board, and it enables new forms of creativity. Generative art, music, writing tools, design, opening up new possibilities. The potential to uplift humanity is huge.
Okay, and finally, the dangers. The big worries that keep people up at night.
Right, the dangers are just as significant. We're looking at potential economic upheaval and job loss on a massive scale as AI takes over tasks that could cause huge social disruption, increase inequality.
Yeah.
Then there's weaponization, autonomous weapons making life or death decisions. That's terrifying. Plus, the mass creation of sophisticated disinformation we talked about, undermining democracy, trust.
Scary stuff.
And then the ultimate, most debated danger, existential risks from runaway AGI. The possibility, however remote some think it is, that superintelligence could develop goals misaligned with ours, leading to outcomes that are catastrophic for humanity. Losing control, essentially.
Wow. Okay. That really does cover the spectrum, doesn't it? From its philosophical sparks to this global force shaking everything up, this deep dive. It shows the incredible promise, but also the incredible risk.
It really does. And this AI war between OpenAI and DeepMind. As we've unpacked it, it's so much more than just two companies. It really is a microcosm of these timeless human struggles, isn't it? Knowledge versus power, curiosity versus control, the promise of progress versus the peril of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
We've seen the breakthroughs, the huge societal shifts, the massive questions this rivalry just throws right in our faces.
And that question we started with, who's winning this AI war? Maybe the answer isn't simple. Maybe it's nobody. Or maybe it's everyone, but only if we're wise about how we handle these tools.
Exactly. The competition drives incredible progress, no doubt. But it also ramps up the risks if we're not careful, if we don't prioritize foresight and ethics.
It really makes you think about our collective responsibility here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, will AI stay a tool, a servant? Or does it somehow become the master, shaping our choices, our reality? Will it truly spread knowledge and opportunity? Or just make the rich richer, the powerful more powerful? These aren't just questions for tech CEOs anymore, are they?
Not at all. These huge questions, they don't belong just to OpenAI or DeepMind. They belong to all of us, every single one of us.
Yeah.
The real winner in all this, maybe it's the society that learns to ask the better questions. The society that sets wise boundaries, that puts human well-being first, always, over just raw technological power. The society that insists we write the final chapter on being human, not the algorithm.
That's well put. William Gibson had that great line, right? The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed.
Perfect quote for this.
And in this story, OpenAI versus DeepMind, the ending. It's definitely not written yet. It feels like humanity is holding the pen, and we need to be really thoughtful about what we write next.
Absolutely.
Well, we really hope this deep dive has given you a lot to think about, a lot to chew on, and maybe, just maybe, sparked even more questions for you to go out and explore about this incredible, complicated future we're all stepping into together.